G'day there. You're watching the Aussie BIM Guru, and today I've got a great topic, especially if you're a BIM manager, and that's to look at how to unhide all elements in the active view using the Revit API and Python for Dynamo. So we're going to be aiming to just bring all those hidden elements to the forefront. As most BIM managers and model managers know, people love using the hide elements tool, and whilst occasionally it's necessary, it's quite rare that it is. Often people will use this tool instead of trying to use view filters or view settings or view templates, and it can lead to some pretty bad outcomes. So today's focus is to build a tool where we just hit a button and it will either report the hidden elements in the view for review, it'll select them, or it will just unhide them and bring them straight to the forefront. It's a pretty extreme tool, but sometimes necessary. So today I'll be using Autodesk Revit 2024 and Dynamo for Revit, as well as the dependency of the DS Iron Python 2.7 package, just so I can write in Iron Python, because that's my preferred dialect. So I'm assumed you'll have a little bit of knowledge in Revit, hopefully the basics of Revit API down pat, and some Python fundamentals, but I will explain most things as I go. So let's jump in. As always, if I'm talking too fast, you can slow me down using the settings on YouTube using playback speed, just in case I talk a little bit too fast for your liking. So let's jump in. So I'm going to be using just the standard Revit sample model in Revit 2024 Snowden Towers. And I'm just going to grab a view and start to hide some elements. Let's hide maybe a grid, some dimensions. Now, not everything is getting hidden. Some things are becoming hidden because the thing that they refer to is gone. For example, tags and dimensions. Now, as soon as the thing they're related to comes back, it's gonna reappear. So it's really only the base things that we're hiding that we'll be targeting. Let's hide maybe a section marker, and maybe just let's hide everything in this little kitchen unit. So that should probably be enough for now, just to focus on. I'm now just going to switch over to Dynamo, and we're going to begin building a tool that can effectively find all these hidden elements and, tell us who's been a very naughty modeler, most likely. So we're going to need to do a few different things this time around. I'm just going to make a new script. We're going to build this tool to run in 3 different modes. So what I'm going to do is use a special tool that's in Revit 2024 Dynamo under Input Basic, and we're going to use a custom selection list. Now this won't be available in prior versions of Revit, in which case you'll probably need to use an integer slider and an instruction note to the user that will explain to them what each number relates to. For now, I'll just do 1, 2, and 3 as the value, but to display, we're going to make the first option just report elements. So it won't unhide them, it won't select them, and then we'll say select the elements, brackets stay in hidden mode, because we are going to have to temporarily go into hidden mode, but if we want to select them, then we don't want to disable hidden mode, otherwise we won't be able to see what we have selected. And the final mode, of course, will be unhide the elements in view. So we're sort of going up in terms of extremeness of outcomes. So that's going to provide us with a custom selection. So we can just say choose run mode. And we're just going to pass this in as our input. Now I'm just going to say unhide script final. So I'm going to begin using a Python node. So I will be using my boilerplate. So I'll just quickly show you what that looks like. So if I go edit, it's going to have quite a lot of stuff in it. We're not going to use all of it, but if you do need a copy, if you go over to my GitHub, so github.com/AussieBIMGuru, and go to the miscellaneous repo, you will be able to find a copy of my Python template, which will contain pretty much everything you're seeing here. And we're just going to strip this back to the point where we can start with this as a really good starting point. So we are going to need not just the document today, but also the user interface document, or the UI doc, which is going to let us deal with selecting objects. We're also going to need system, but in this case, we're going to modify this. So I'm just going to get rid of this sys reference. I'll keep import system. We don't need array, but from system collections generic, we are going to import the list class. This is a special class that will allow us to build a list with a specified object type stored in it. In this case, it's going to be element IDs. We're going to get rid of everything all the way down to Revit services. We don't need that. We are going to need document manager and the transaction manager to make changes to the document. As well as this, I believe we probably don't need the API UI. I'm pretty sure we don't. I think the selections class doesn't fall under API UI. Just we'll check it anyway, and if not, I'll go and recollect it from my starter. But I think we just need the Revit API, import Autodesk from Revit DB, import everything for now. So I am going to need everything here except for the app in my list of references to documents and apps. So we are going to need the doc. We're going to need the UI app so that we can reference the UI doc, and this will allow us to reference things like selections. So I'm just going to get rid of all these functions. We don't need any of those, and we're going to begin with just our input. So I'm just going to call this run mode equals in 0. So we've collected the number that this run mode correlates to. At this point, we are going to be referencing some temporary view modes in this script. So we are going to specify these just as global constants to keep them together, make them easy to track. So I am going to be looking for some temporary view modes. And this is going to be what's called an enumeration, so it has a fixed set of outcomes. We're going to be dealing with both the temporary hide isolate because we want to disable this if it's on, and we're also going to be dealing with the reveal hidden elements enumeration. So I'm just going to copy this enumerated outcome, and what I'm going to do is just specify two global variables, which I usually specify in all caps, and I'm just going to call this view hide temp equals, and I'm going to say temporary view mode dot, and then we're going to do temporary hide isolate. And likewise, I'm just going to copy this again, but I'm going to call the second one view hide element for hide elements, which will put us in and out of temporary hide elements. Oh, sorry, reveal hidden elements mode. So I'll go reveal hidden elements. And you'll see later on when we use these to enable the temporary view modes that we need in order to see hidden elements in our model. So the next step we have to do is actually put our document into a reveal hidden elements state. So to do this, we're going to have to refer to the active view. So you can actually get this as a property of the document class. So if we just go over to the document class in the API, sorry, I think, actually, is it document? I thought it was. I think we've come into the wrong section. I'll just have a look for active view. I know it's called active view property. Yeah, it's a document property, but I think it was under the wrong namespace. It needs to be the Revit DB namespace as opposed to the creation namespace where you can create elements in a document. Cool. So we now have a document active view. So that's going to return the current view that we're looking at. So I'm actually up here. I'm just also going to have a view current equals doc.active view. And I'll just zoom in a little bit so things are a little bit bigger and easier to read. Give myself a bit more space. There we go, that's a lot better. I'll just quickly save. Okay, so now that we have the current view, we can actually activate, well, first of all, we probably want to do two things. I might put this into manual mode as well, just to be safe. So I'll just currently send out the current view. Cool. And I'm just going to go to manual mode. So we actually firstly want to disable temporary hide isolate just in case it's already on, because if that's the case, we won't be able to see a lot of things. So I'm actually going to be going to the disable temporary view mode method under the view class. So if I go to view class, we should find a method once it pops up. So we should have the disable temporary view mode, which allows you to disable a specified view mode. Remember that we've already got these two types of view modes we'll work with. The first one we want to use is going to be the temporary hide isolate mode. So within a transaction, which I've already specified here in my boilerplate, I'm going to be first of all disabling this view mode. So I'm going to go view underscore current and apply the disable temporary view mode property. And then the view mode that we're targeting is going to be this temporary view mode, which I've stored up here. Now you don't have to do that. You can copy this all into there. I just find it much easier when you're dealing with a few really similar elements to each other, such as view modes. If you keep them all together with a very clear naming system, you can just save a lot of time and be easier to view and understand what the script is doing. So now that we've done that, we actually want to enable reveal hidden elements as well. So how do we do that? Well, if we go to enable reveal hidden mode, well, we can see we actually have a method that just does this. There's no enable view mode type. We also can enable temporary view properties and other types of view modes, but for now we want to enable the reveal hidden mode. So again, view current, enable reveal hidden mode. So if I run my script at this point, this should put Revit into the reveal hidden elements mode, and it has. So at this point, Revit's in a state where it can actually see elements in the view even if they're hidden, because they're currently visible in the reveal hidden elements mode. Now this is helpful because we can actually take advantage of this and now start querying elements visible in the current view, which we couldn't do before because those elements weren't visible. So at this point, we now want to ask this, this view, what do you contain? What elements are in you? And then once we have those elements, we're going to ask them all, are you hidden currently in the view? So I might just rename this to enable view modes. And under this, we're now going to actually get the elements in the view. So we'll just say get elements in view and check if hidden. So we are going to be building a list eventually called elements hidden, an empty list. I'll just make a bit of space here. So the first thing we want to do is build a filtered element collector. So if you're not familiar with this class, it's a very important one in the Revit API. And it has a few ways you can construct one, but effectively they're going to filter the whole model for a set of elements that meet a specific condition. So the one that we're going to construct here is one that takes a document and also the ID of a view that an element is visible in, which is literally exactly what we want. So I'm just going to take this filtered element collector, and the first thing we'll build is just a list called elements. This is just all elements in view. So we're going to say filtered element collector, and we're going to pass the two arguments of doc or document, and then the second one will be the ID of view current. So we want to get the ID property. I'm then going to use a special syntax by doing a backslash, which lets me go to the next line whilst not breaking my method chaining that I'm building right now. And I'm firstly just going to make sure that I only get elements, not element types, just in case there's some things it picks up. I'm going to say where element is not element type. I don't believe there's many things it can pick up that way, but I just prefer to make sure it can't see them. And then finally, we're going to say to elements. So we want to get a list of elements. Now that we have this list of elements, we want to find out which elements in that list are actually hidden. So in this case, I'm just going to say for e in elements try. So we're trying to see if we can get the property of the fact they're hidden. Now, a little workaround that I use here as well is I found there's some elements that technically support the hidden property that you wouldn't really want. And I found that the thing they all have in common is they don't have a category. So within this try block, the first thing I'm going to do is ask this element, what is your category? Now, if it can't support that property, it's going to fail, and the try block will go to the accept statement, which is going to be pass. But now that I've done this, the next thing I can do is say, well, are you hidden? Because I've got rid of the things that are categoryless, which we don't really want. So what we can do now is looking at the element class, we can ask this element if it's hidden. So this will be a method of the element class, which a lot of things inherit. And we can check if it is hidden as a method. And the only argument it takes is the view that we want to check if it's hidden in, which we know is our current view. So I'm going to take this isHidden method. And I'm also going to say if the element is hidden in the current view, which should return true if it is, then we want to append this to elements hidden. And that's pretty much the point we've got to. Now at this point, this would actually give us a report of all the elements that are hidden in the view. So we've already satisfied the first step of our script. If I run this, now I need to say where element is not element type instead of where is not element type. And we can see we found those 14 elements that I hid at the start of this tutorial. So we've done one run mode technically. This would be enough to satisfy condition 1 out of 3. Now we need to work with condition 2 and condition 3. So let's think about it. Condition 2, what do we need to do? Well, we want to select the elements and not disable reveal hidden elements. Whereas in mode 3, we do want to disable reveal hidden elements and then unhide the elements. So there's quite a few things we're going to have to do here, but the first thing we're doing is we are modifying our document. So we are just going to borrow another transaction. In this case, we're going to start a second transaction. And instead of enable view modes, we'll just call this unhide or select. I'm also just going to take a transaction task done, so that in between here we can make all our changes to the document. Now the first thing I want to check is, do I want to disable reveal hidden elements? Because we already have the elements, so we can disable it and still unhide the elements after. That doesn't matter. So the first thing I'll do is check if run mode is not equal to 3. Because we know if run mode is not equal to 3, then we don't want to unhide the elements. If we're reporting the elements or if we're selecting them, we don't want to. So it actually should be if run mode is not equal to 2. Because if it is reporting or if it is unhiding, we're going to want to reset the hidden elements mode. So like before, we're going to take our view and we're just going to check again. There should be a method for disable instead of enable. So we'll actually look for it directly. Disable, yeah, there we go. Disable temporary view mode. It should be a method applied to the view class, which it is. So instead of enable temporary view mode, we're just going to do disable temporary view mode. And we're going to be using, in this case, the hide elements mode. There we go. So we've technically only used these two global constants once each, so you could argue that it's a bit of a waste of code or space to declare them as a variable. It's probably wasteful from a computational perspective, but I still find it easier to understand these two types of modes that we're dealing with. So for now, I'm just going to leave them there. Now that we've turned off turned off hidden element mode in two scenarios, the next thing we can do is just check, do we actually have any elements in the first place? Because if we don't have any elements, there's nothing to select. So it doesn't really make sense to really do anything unless we have to. So I'm going to say if the length of elements hidden is greater than 0, then the first thing we're going to do is make a list of IDs. So we're going to add each element to a special object, a list that stores element IDs. This is to deal with what's called an iList, which is a special type of object, which is more tailored towards C programming, but it's a trick that you can use in Dynamo to pass in lists of objects as a single object as well. So I'm going to say IDs underscore hidden is equal to, and we're going to declare the list object, which takes a data type in square brackets, and we're using the element ID class, and then we just open and close a bracket on the end. And this will create a special object that can support element IDs in the list systems object type. We're now going to add each element to the list. So we're going to say for E in elements hidden, and we're going to say IDs hidden, and instead of append like we would with a normal list, we're going to use add, which works with a list object like this. And I'm going to add e.id, the ID of the element. And now we need to process two scenarios. The first is that we want to unhide the elements, and the other one is that we want to select the elements. So let's look at the first scenario. So option 3, unhide. So we can say if run mode equals 3, then we want to, in this case, actually unhide the elements. So we're going to start just by saying view current. Now, what method are we looking for? Well, we can go back to our view class, or let's just take a guess. Maybe let's look for unhide, and there we go. There's an unhide elements method. So quite intuitively named, and it just takes, as you can see, an I collection, which we've built of the type element ID. So we're pretty much ready to just say dot unhide elements and then pass in IDs hidden. Alternatively, maybe in this case, we actually only have one other scenario. I just realized we've done scenario 2, we've done scenario 3, so we can just say else, else option 2, select. And we'll just say else, because this is the only other possibility we have. Now this one's a little bit more tricky. This is where we're going to use this UI doc, and this is going to support a class called selection. It's a special class that can do things such as select objects. So it's under revit.ui.selection, which is why we're dealing with UI doc. And in this case, we're going to look for selection methods. So the selection in this case will be a class, but we're going to be using the set element IDs method, which will set a list of element IDs of the same type we've just built to our current selection. So I'm just going to take this method and again, just pass in IDs hidden. So they're very similar pathways, they just do different things with the ID list. So it's a fairly clean way to put this together. And of course, at the end, regardless of whether we're set to report, we just report the elements anyway, because why not? You could, of course, pass through nothing if you want, if you're not running report mode, but I think it makes more sense to see both the report and also the selection at the same time, regardless. So I think at this point we've built the script. It should function. Just to be safe, let's maybe test mode 2. So I'm just going to put this off to the side. Let's disable reveal hidden elements because it should stay on if we're running in mode 2. And let's change from just report to select the elements, stay in hidden mode. If I hit run, we should go to reveal hidden elements mode, and we should also select those objects. Didn't select the objects, interestingly enough. So I've made a mistake. UI document has no attribute. I probably didn't set a method, maybe. Or, I need to do dot selection, that's right. So that has to be actually the class of the UI document. I believe that should, there we go. And we can see now I've added those 14 elements to my selection in the view. Now it's not super easy to see which ones they are. It's just maybe sometimes this mode might help you really focus in on a small set of elements, or you can just go right click, unhide elements. The third mode, which is the most aggressive one, of course, is unhide the elements in view. So, and I might also, while I'm at it, just add a watch output here, because currently I'm not really watching my report. So I'll set that to an output and call this hidden elements. And if I hit run, this mode should go into reveal hidden elements, unhide the elements, and reset. And we can see that those elements have now come back into the model. So a really powerful little utility that will help, I think, model managers and BIM managers that are struggling with hidden elements. Just to finish up, let's have a look at how this looks in Dynamo Player. So by default, you should put it in the least aggressive run mode so that if someone hits play without meaning to, nothing's really going to happen. It's just going to report the elements. So I'm just going to save, close, maximize, and we'll just run Dynamo Player. Currently, Dynamo Player is pointing to my desktop. You can put the script in whichever folder you want, of course. You just need to make sure you add it to Dynamo Player, like I have. I'm just going to switch back to desktop, and in this case, unhide script final. And we can see we have these 3 options available. So let's maybe just hide one element just as a proof of concept, and maybe 2. We'll do a section as well. Just report. And we should see, we won't see the hide element steps, they'll just happen behind the scenes. We didn't even see them, but it did actually go in and out of reveal hidden elements mode. We should be able to see that in the transaction log from Dynamo. There we go. So we've got grid and element. Well, how about we select them instead? This should stop during the process, select them, and then finish. So we should see these 2 elements, and we do. Perfect. And finally, the most aggressive mode, of course. Unhide the elements in view. Run. And we should just see the elements appear magically. Of course, there's no magic. We have to build that, but you know, it looks pretty magic to the user. And there we go. A very helpful utility, especially for model managers. So hopefully that helps some of you out there that are struggling with users that are a bit hide happy. So as always, my scripts are located on my GitHub if you're looking for them or other reference material. But I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and it taught you more about the Revit API and building sort of custom apps in Dynamo that behave a bit more intelligently using logic. So thank you for watching. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe if you found it useful. You can contact me at this email, and if you have a video request, do let me know. And of course, leave any comments that you want. If you have any feedback or you have any ideas, I respond to every comment. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you in future similar videos. Thanks. Take care. Bye.